Hello, I'm Esther Githui. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Kenya's pro-reform protesters hold nationwide anti-government demonstrations in an effort to oust President William Ruto. A look at the historical relevance of U.S. vice presidential candidates and their influence in winning presidential elections. And an esteemed American astronaut tours South African schools to emphasize the importance of education in science, technology, and engineering. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. Police in riot gear are patrolling across Nairobi on Thursday as pro-reform protesters held nationwide marches. The youth-led protests against planned tax hikes started off peacefully but turned violent, killing at least 39 people in clashes with the police last month. Some demonstrators briefly stormed Parliament before President William Ruto abandoned the new taxes. Mohammed Yusuf reports from Nairobi.
Kenyan anti-government protesters have again taken to the streets to express their dissatisfaction with President William Ruto's government. The Kenyan government deployed heavy police to block protesters who are planning to occupy several streets in central Nairobi and march to the State House. Protesters emerged from several streets to march, but were met with tear gas to contain them. Those who came out Thursday in Nairobi are not satisfied with the Kenyan government's actions to address their demands.
We are not satisfied. He is just blinding us, you see? We are not satisfied. Yeah. We are here for our rights. We are fighting for our rights, not for war. We are not here for war. We are just here for our rights. Sakayo, you must go.
My name is Wenina Gishere. I am a student leader at the University of Nairobi. And what I'm demanding right now is they stop abducting us. They wanted to abduct Kasmul. Yeah? What have we done wrong? What have we done wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong with Ruto? Yeah? What have we done?
Protesters are demanding good governance and the government to fight corruption to make good use of the revenue it collects. President Ruto has dissolved his cabinet and created a new, more inclusive government by appointing opposition members to help lead the country. Despite this move, protests and anger in the streets continue. Kenya's security forces have brought protests in Nairobi under control. The streets of Nairobi are now empty, though some clashes between youth and the police continue. The protesters demand the government to step down and call for new elections, a decision some say the youth will have to wait until 2027 when Kenya is expected to hold a general election. Mohammed Yusuf, VOA News, Nairobi.
Many young Africans are using technology to challenge the status quo and advocate for transparency and accountability in their government. They are using social media to organize and voice their grievances in the face of government resistance. VOA's Paul Ndiho spoke to Dr. Teju Baba, a West African physician, podcaster, and author of 50 African Pioneers, who says that technology could bring about the desired change.
Young people today have moved beyond the dreams of a previous generation, where, I mean, there was a generation, of course, that came right out of colonization, where the objective was to have a family, to feed your family, to build a house, and to live a comfortable life. And I think that generation is now retiring, and the new generation, as you can see in the events that are happening across the continent, in Kenya, the protests in Kenya, in Nigeria, you can see it has one common link, is that these young people are thinking, it doesn't matter what happened to me. I want things to change. And that links me to an African wisdom that I put as a banner for the book. It says, if your dreams are all about yourself, then they're not big enough. You see, that for me is what this this Gen Z generation is doing. Like, it's not about them anymore. They have been to school, they have degrees, they don't have jobs. They could just manage for themselves and try to get out of the country and go somewhere. But they're like, no, things have to change here.
From your vantage point, what do you think is pushing these young people to be out there trying to challenge the status quo?
Most of them were born in an age where technology was already booming, but also went to school. A lot of them went to school. They really had a belief in the story that if you go to school, then you get a job and you can live a good life. And they can see that things are not the way they were told. They have the technical and the intellectual capacity to analyze those things and to put things together. And then they have technology to talk among themselves, to communicate, to prepare. And that is what is surprising our leaders. Because you know what? They didn't know it. I mean, our leaders don't think the technology is that strong. They really think it's still about WhatsApp, just chatting, Facebook. But the technology that they're using is not just Facebook. There's all the other ways that they are communicating that people cannot crack.
Smart people like you have argued that technology in tandem with social media is the new enemy that our leaders didn't know they had. How can our leaders on the continent maybe figure out how to stay on the good side of this technology?
I'm hopeful that because of those pushes that people are doing, because of the movement, the protest, slowly people will get to that point where they look like, okay, we need to do something. And if you look at the Western countries, it's the same. They went through times like that in the past. The youth brought the issue to the table, and the government fought back and fought back and fought back. But then ultimately, there was a balance that created itself somewhere, and then people kind of reach a success. So I really hope that will happen.
Dr. Teju Baba is a West African physician, podcaster, and author of 50 African Pioneers. The humanitarian crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo due to the armed conflict opposing the government coalition and the M23 rebels is now at a critical level. While M23 is requesting dialogue with Congo, President Felix Tshisekedi is rejecting any negotiation with the rebel movement, which he considers illegitimate. Boyana Coulibaly, a researcher on the language of conflict and atrocity prevention based at Harvard University, has just returned from Congo, where she was doing research on DRC's prolonged war. And now for more on what is driving that conflict in DRC, I'm joined live via Skype from Boston, Massachusetts by Boyana Coulibaly, a researcher on language of conflict and atrocity prevention based at Harvard University. Boyana, what motivated you, first of all, to go to the M23 controlled area in Eastern Congo?
As a researcher on language of conflict and hate speech, I went to North Kivu with Teddy Mazina, a photojournalist who has covered Burundi in the past and who is familiar with the conflict dynamics in the region, to gain a deeper understanding of the drivers of conflict in DRC and of the mechanisms of hate ideology targeting the Kinyarwanda-phone communities, because the area currently under M23 control was occupied for 30 years by the Hutu power armed group FDLR, which fled into DRC, or former Zaire, after committing the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, and which since then continued to perpetrate violence against Congolese people. I felt that it was finally safe to travel there to collect information which was not reported on in the media and academia for the last 2 years.
Well, great. You did some work there for us now. I understand that, kind of shockingly, that you actually interviewed the M23 spokesperson, Lawrence Kanyuka. What did you talk about, and what did other M23 rebels tell you about this conflict?
Yes, guided by Lawrence Kenyuka in the Rutshuru area, I saw that the soil is very fertile and that the people could sustain themselves abundantly from agriculture or cattle herding in the Masisi region. The markets are fully functioning and the prospect for peace in the free zone is highly palpable. That being said, this is an area which for over 2 decades has been subjected to armed violence, state corruption, and absence of functioning administration, and this is part of the M23 grievances.
But more precisely, Boyana, what does the M23 rebel group say would be the solution to end this conflict?
The M23 has, since its inception, been seeking dialogue and a political solution to the crisis. However, Kinshasa, after 14 months of negotiation with M23 10 years ago, and to a great surprise of M23 members, has been rejecting any of their political demands. 2 days ago, President Tshisekedi said in an interview on a national Congolese media that he will never negotiate with the M23.
Wow, so what are your findings there with regards to the root causes of this conflict?
There are visible signs of the 3 decades-long violence and persecution of the local population by the FDLR and of the destruction of the critical environment. People have fled their villages and homes when the FDLR were present. Close to 1 million refugees from that area have been in refugee camps for over 2 decades in neighboring countries. And many refugees and IDPs have been returning home in the last 2 years since the M23 has been securing the area and keeping the FDLR away.
What did you hear specifically, maybe from the women who are within the war zone in Eastern DRC?
The women, of course, are concerned about how to sustain a normal life, which is schooling their children, having access to hospital, having access to basic services. However, because, like I was saying, for 20 years, for 2 decades or more, there has been no proper administration, local administration, which was capable to provide these services to the women. I think the M23 have been trying to provide some type of services at this time, with so many priorities being on their plate. So they're trying to rebuild roads and school the children that were outside of the schooling system during the presence of FDLR.
Boyana, thank you so much for going there and telling us what it is to see this war in Eastern Congo. Boyana Coulibaly is a researcher on the language of conflict and atrocity prevention based at Harvard University. Thousands of anti-racism protesters took to the streets in Britain Wednesday to oppose days of far-right violence that have British police on high alert. They marched to defy the routing attacks on migrants that erupted across cities in England and Northern Ireland since 3 children were murdered on July 29th. However, it was anti-fascist activists who were out in greater numbers. Would like to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, an American astronaut inspires students in South Africa to pursue careers in the sciences. We'll be right back.
Since 2014, the Young African Leaders Initiative, or YALI, has brought 500 young people from across Africa to the United States to study business, entrepreneurship, public management, and civic leadership at 20 American universities. On the next edition of Our Voices, we will introduce you to some extraordinary young African women from over the past decades to share their experiences in the Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders program. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, Doctors Without Borders says it recorded an alarming 23,000 cases of severe malnutrition in Nigeria's bout. Thomas Richardson passed Rebecca Haas for a U.S. win. And Taylor Swift fans are devastated by the cancellations of 3 sold-out Eras Tour shows in Austria after authorities foiled an apparent plot for an attack in Vienna. Swifties, as her fans are called to social media to express their frustration at missing out on one of the superstars' shows. Fresh off naming Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate, Vice President Kamala Harris on Wednesday traveled to Wisconsin and Michigan. Meanwhile, Senator J.D. Vance, the running mate of former President Donald Trump, held his own events Wednesday in Wisconsin and Michigan. VOA's Veronica Balderas Iglesias looks at the historical relevance of vice presidential candidates and what Walz and Vance bring to their respective tickets.
With great confidence in her decision, Vice President Kamala Harris introduced Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate on Tuesday in Pennsylvania.
In his state, he has been a model chief executive, and with his experience, I'm telling you, Tim Walz will be ready on day one.
Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump also hails the political record of his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. But the former president recently downplayed the importance of vice presidential picks.
And I think this is well documented. Historically, the vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact. And it's all about the presidential pick.
Scholars explain that because vice presidents operate in the shadow of the U.S. president, their role is often misunderstood and unappreciated. They are, however, the first in line of succession when a president can no longer serve, and key to advancing their party's political agenda.
Their role is really to act as a subordinate, to help promote and pursue the president's policies, and to expand the president's ability to function as a national and international leader.
To a certain extent, VP picks can boost presidential campaigns, Goldstein says.
Bill Clinton's pick of Al Gore in 1992 was a very good pick. The combination of these two young Southern centrist baby boomers really sent a message of generational change.
A bad pick is how the analyst described Republican Senator John McCain's decision to have Governor Sarah Palin as his running mate in 2008.
And she really became a figure who was parodied during the campaign, and I think ended up hurting the McCain ticket. It wasn't the reason that Senator McCain lost.
This election cycle, Tim Walz's credentials and his focus on pro-family economics is what the Harris campaign is betting on.
A version of being pro-family that is not about the control of reproduction, but is about the economic support of families, be that education, healthcare, housing, job development.
J.D. Vance will help advance the Republican narrative, says analyst Peter Loge.
The narrative they're telling that is, there used to be an America in which if you worked hard and played by the rules, middle class, hardworking family, you could succeed, and that America is now gone, and that if you vote for them, that America will come back.
Even if vice presidential candidates rarely make a major difference in elections, analysts say U.S. voters will pay attention to how well the current VP picks listen to the electorate and channel their concerns. Veronica Valderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
We recently introduced you to Cameroonian-born American Leo Eyombo, a political candidate for an at-large council seat in Princess George's County, Maryland. Well, the voters have cast their ballots. And VOA's Philip Alexiou is at the National Harbor along the Potomac River with candidate Eyombo to see how it turned out for him. Phil?
All right, well, thank you very much, Esther. We've had a couple of rain showers here, but thankfully we're under a nice big tent. We have Leo here, obviously. So, Leo, the votes have kind of come in. How did you do?
Well, I didn't do as well as I thought I was going to do, but hey, it's politics, right? You got to accept your loss and congratulate the winner and live to fight another day. So thank you for having me, Mr. Phillips.
Well, so tell me about the process this year for you. I know that you've been out on the campaign trail like everybody else. You've done some TV hits and that sort of thing. Talk about the process for you this time around.
Well, it's been actually very tedious due to the fact that the special election was only 30 days or 45 days, something like that. So in order to put a campaign in that amount of time is really difficult because you have to be able to print posters, which take at least 30 days. So that's already challenging, but like anything in politics, it's done to favor some certain people. And so established candidates already had inside information on when it's going to be and how long it's going to take.
And I think we should mention that it was a special election because Mel Franklin, the incumbent, had resigned, had some issues, and there's some issues with whether or not he used campaign funds for personal reasons. So that opened up the seat. But this seat also opens up another seat because one of the incumbents, Jolene Ivey, was in the 5th district, and she's the one who appears to be going to be winning the at-large seat, so that opens up another seat.
Correct. More than likely, Mrs. Ivey will be she's the projected winner for now. I think she will be the winner eventually after all votes are counted. But that brings a little dilemma because the 5th district will be vacant. And if Angela Austin Brooks becomes U.S. Senator, which she will be, by the grace of God, that will be another seat that will be vacant. So we're going to be all spatial out in PG County.
So tell me about the experiences with the town hall and basically what's it like running here, and if you were to compare it with the politics in Cameroon?
Well, it's really an open door policy here. I never was a candidate in Cameroon, but I can tell you that in the U.S. it's very transparent. You can actually go to these forums and be able to meet people one-on-one. You can pick your issues. I was a candidate of education, low taxation, and making sure that people can be able to get extra days for rent. So those are issues that you feel at heart that you think your voters might be able to think and vote for you. So in Africa, on the other hand, there might be other ways to do it where you might be a family business maybe. But yeah, probably getting to that in PG County where, you got a couple of last names, like in Africa, all in local government, state government, and the federal government. So it's becoming very much like Africa.
So you've run for this seat twice.
Correct.
And so if there's another seat opening up, would you have a desire to run again?
Well, like a true politician, I would say I haven't made up my mind yet. Yeah, right? But more than likely...
Yes or no?
More than likely, I don't know yet. I'll make up later. Thank you.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
All right, Leo Amba, great to meet you. Gracious of you to come and visit us after the campaign, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Esther.
Phil, thanks. VOA's Philip Alexiou reporting live from the National Harbor in Maryland. Esteemed American astronaut, geoscience professor and artist Sian Proctor is touring South Africa's schools to emphasize the importance of education in science, technology, engineering, art and mathematics. Her goal is to inspire students to pursue careers in the sciences and equip them for space jobs. Zahia Kasim reports from Johannesburg.
Sian Proctor always dreamed of being an astronaut. In 2009, she became a finalist for the U.S. space agency NASA astronaut program, but didn't get the job. Proctor, a geology professor and artist, never gave up on her space dreams. In 2021, she was chosen to participate in SpaceX's Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian orbital mission. She became the first black woman to pilot a spacecraft. Late last month, she was in Johannesburg, South Africa, speaking to over 250 high school students about the importance of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM, when pursuing a profession in space exploration. She says another subject is also crucial for would-be astronauts: art. The space sector is expanding rapidly, yet companies face challenges in recruiting due to the high demand for STEM skills. Space agencies in the United States, United Kingdom, and South Africa have all reported a shortage of qualified personnel. Exposure to real-life role models can help address this issue, says Steve Sherman, head of the education nonprofit Living Maths, which helped arrange Proctor's visit.
If they interact with these people who actually use math and science and technology in their careers, if they can see how awesome it is, then hopefully they'll be more engaged.
Many in the country don't know space careers exist, says South African National Space Agency educator Ntabiseng Lebaka.
I had no idea that South Africa has a space agency. They were looking for a science educator. So I'm currently working as a science engagement officer, where we do outreach programs, we do space labs, we also do teacher development training as well.
Proctor then took a mission to Cape Town, where she shares her inspirational journey to promote education in STEM subjects and the arts.
Space to inspire!
Sayur Kasim, VOA News, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.